Danny, thanks for joining me today. Much appreciated that you took the time out to be here and answer some of these questions.
Mr. Jans, good morning, and it's a pleasure. Lockdown number 6, day 8 for Melbourne. Not that I'm counting.
No, it doesn't sound like it. Where are you in the current scheme of lockdown? Do you have much longer to go for this one?
As of this morning's update, I believe so. I am not convinced that lockdown will be lifted this coming Thursday.
Couple more weeks, month
I
ish.
reckon it'll probably. I'm guessing. I probably don't want to talk about it too much more, but my guess is that this lockdown will probably go for about a month. I think there's still a few too many people contagious in the community.
Community, yeah, that's
Simple as
unfortunate.
that. Just simple as that. And it's not like there's a lot in the community, but enough for them to say no, it's too many.
Yeah, enough to be a concern. Well, hopefully these conversations will keep people that are in lockdown entertained and bring people some sort of enjoyment and hopefully some new music to check out that they may not have checked out before. So
Well,
what I
I
want
mean,
to
yeah, like no pressure whatsoever. Like
no, no,
just
no,
having.
no, 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 none. So people's sanity in lockdown is dependent upon the music choices you are recommending today. Just remember
Okay,
that.
got it.
Excellent. So what I wanted to say to people, anyone listening, it may be worth sitting down with a pen and paper or having your notes handy on your phone. If you feel interested in checking out any of this stuff, you can just write it down, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to do whatever you want to do. So we will kick
I
off.
have faith. I have faith in Mr. Jans having good program notes as well.
Hopefully. So we'll kick off with kind of two-part question. So this is going to be put to these two questions are going to be put to anyone taking part in this interview series. So
Okay.
basically, what I'm looking for, the 5 artists that have been most influential to your development and
Mm.
5 albums that have been influential in your development. In regards to the artists, it can be people of your instrument, other instruments,
Got it. Got it.
completely open-ended. And the albums, it can be things that have directly shaped your current musical identity, or it could be the first thing you heard as a adolescent and can't stand to listen to now. So basically, it's completely open to any way you want to approach it. So
Wow, we're going right into the thick of it straight away. I love it. Okay.
absolutely.
Uh, um, I was thinking that in the broadest general terms, whether I like it or not, I probably should be honest with myself and say maybe I really am actually a jazz drummer that sort of dabbles in the occasional something else. And I
Indiscretion,
use sorry.
the occasional indiscretion.
Yeah, yeah, and trust me, I love being indiscreet. You kidding? Oh my god, it's some of the best ever. I don't like the word jazz in the sense that that's just a label that somebody else has given, and then we just accept it by saying, "Oh, that's how we categorize an entire genre of music."
Yep.
Um, but I, 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 I've just got to just look at my own life in terms of what I listen to as the majority of my listening experience. I seem to be drawn to that genre, and most of the work that I out of lockdown that I kind of choose to do. But maybe that's also for different reasons. Maybe I don't hustle extremely hard to maybe say, hey, I want to be even more, I want to be discreet, not indiscreet about trying to dabble my feet into other styles. But it's as simple as it was the music that I grew up listening to, whether I liked it or not, because my father and mother absolutely adore it, and my older brother equally. So it was always on in the house. Okay. Um, the thing that gets me, the thing that I still resonate with, which I think is even more difficult in this part of like 21st century and for lots of financial reasons. I'm not drawn to a singular artist. I adore the idea of a ensemble, a band, a
Mhm.
working group that has been able to put their concept, even if it has a band leader, it's all the other members that take part in that as an equal collective that that we are so lucky to be able to just listen to and absorb and love it. So it's not the singular artist, it's the artist plus their ensemble.
Absolutely.
Like,
That should have been included in my questioning.
no, no, no,
Popping
no, no,
on my part.
because I reckon everyone's going to come up with a beautiful different answer. So
Mhm.
don't just because this is how I've decided to kind of think about it. Just let everyone just take it where they go,
Mhm.
and it will be fascinating to see where people want to sort of answer your question. So I was starting to think about, okay, what working groups still resonate with me, and it'll still sound a little narrow-minded in the jazz context, but I'll try to let the sort of like it starts from a root and then it kind of branches out. And immediately I just thought, you know what, one of my earliest memories, and I still love it, is the first quintet of Miles Davis.
Yep.
John Coltrane, Red Garland, Paul Chambers, Philly Joe Jones as a collective unit. No
Yep.
subs, no addition. I just mean the core
The core group.
quintet. So as soon
Yep.
as I say that, I immediately go to those 2 days split maybe like 3 months apart, like May
Yep.
and September. Cooking, steaming, working, relaxing.
Yep.
The record they did on the Sly for Columbia around about midnight.
Yep.
And that little bootleg from East St. Louis, or East St. Louis, um, Peacock Alley, everything. Oh, and all of the dates that they did at Cafe Bohemia that were recorded for radio broadcast, all of it. The stuff that we can take the most from, obviously, is the stuff that's commercial.
Yep.
Cook and steam and work and relax and round about midnight. I just still love them. And I love them for how they were. What would be the term? Okay. So they ran basically 2 days in the studio. They ran their repertoire.
Mm.
Maybe it was Bob Weinstock who kind of curated it into the themes
Yep.
of the album. So like what Philly Joe plays on Aerogen on Cookin' is just one of the most outrageous displays of a sophisticated melody
Yeah.
to equal sophisticated drumming.
Yep. For sure.
But then I just love the intimacy of the version of If I Rebel,
Yep.
which is the first track on Relaxin'.
Relaxing. Yeah.
Or I love the heat of Half Nelson off Workin'. And then I totally fell in love with the trio, almost like
Warm up tune,
almost like an intermission.
like Blues by Five. That one.
No, 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 no. And it's on Workin'. It's Ahmed's Blues.
Ahmed Blues. That's right. Yeah. Gotcha.
It's
Yeah.
almost like an intermission. If you listen to all four of them, it's like, oh, we're just gonna, the horn players are just gonna go off and have a drink and a cigarette, and we're gonna let the trio just play one. And
Yeah.
it has that beautiful kind of like circuit breaker. And then I heard that track, and I love, because I love the Ahmad Jamal trio, but I love Red Garland a la Ahmad Jamal.
Yeah.
And then it just has this coolness and this. Oh, I love listening to that track. And then Philly Joe, when I first heard that one, Ahmad's Blues, and then Philly Joe goes into those double time
The trades.
tradings, I
Yeah.
lost it. So I would have been, like 14, 15 when I first really started loving that Miles first quintet.
Yep.
So that's number one. It's the group.
Yep.
It's not just Miles, because that's too vague, man. That's just.
Yep.
Now, the beauty of that is you could just branch out and go, oh, okay, well, what other Miles records when I listen to? It's like some people might be totally drawn to like the entire, like all of the Gil Evans ones that were done in that 30th Street church,
Yep.
like those ones. Oh, I'm drawn to that side of Miles. And for good reason too, because they're just, oh, they're beautiful. But I like that working group concept.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, still the same thing. A working group. The music evolves and it has the intimacy and I just totally drawn to Ornette Coleman. I
Mhm.
still can't quit listening to the classic, um, Ornette Coleman Quartet. Whether it was the sessions done in LA with Billy and Don Cherry, Charlie Hayden, Billy Higgins, where they did that recording session for Atlantic that then became The Shape of Jazz to Come and Change of the Century. And they're just, oh, there's some anarchic bits and there is just some incredible melody. And I can still sing some of Ornette's solos because I just thought this was some of the most beautiful music I'd heard in my life. Like on A Shape of Jazz to Come, there's a tune called Peace, which is
Mhm.
one of Ornette's. I love that tune. Oh my God, I heard that in high school. I was like, oh my God, this is one of the most beautiful songs. And you can hear Charlie just do his occasional little woo
Yeah.
when they're playing Lonely Woman. And it's just that kind of thing where someone in the band is just so into what's happening in the moment and they don't care that the microphone's on.
Yeah.
So and then when they all did their went to the East Coast and started living in New York and doing their 5 spot residency, then the tracks that they laid down with Edward Blackwell. So this is our music. So I just like, oh my God, blues connotation. I lost it. And I was like, I can still sing Ornette solo on blues connotation. And I've listened to Blackwell's drum solo so many times. And my hunch is that there's an edit getting out of the trumpet solo into the drum solo. Don't care. Mm, So number two is that Ornette Coleman concept, that the beginnings of the quartet. And I know there's the earlier stuff that you can listen to with Paul Bley, like under Paul's name, with Ornette, Don Cherry, Charlie Hayden, and Billy Higgins, and I love that stuff, and I've got that too.
That's interesting.
Because
I don't think I've actually checked. I don't think I've checked any of that out.
yeah, it was Paul's group,
Right. Okay.
and it was a residency that he had at the Hillcrest in '58, and he brought in like maybe 2 microphones, and it's a fascinating snapshot into what Paul's um, uh, opinion, sonically of how that band sonically were leveled. And
Hmm.
he's like, Ornette was way on top, like loud, present, heat.
Okay.
And he's got this interesting take on those Atlantic records where the sound is very equalized and everyone plays at the same level.
Yeah.
The drums, the bass, the trumpet, and the saxophone are all equalized at the same dynamic level on the record, which they are. And he's like, no, 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 no. This is not how the band sounded live. So when you hear the Paul Bley tracks, which are live, like you can get a different idea of like Ornette on top, and then the band is,
Interesting. How much?
and
How much? How much earlier is that?
it's around the same time because
Like
they're also
around the
playing.
same time. Okay.
It's 50, yeah, it's still 58, and they're also playing some of Ornette's tunes.
Right.
So Ramblin' and Free,
Hmm.
um, but they also play a couple of Parker tunes.
Right. Okay.
Like, so it's fascinating to hear Ornette play Plecto Sting. It's just like, wow, this is like a bebop. This is like this is like a, yeah, it's Ornette playing Charlie Parker. How cool is that? But that came later when that stuff of Paul's finally surfaced on a slightly record label. But you know me, I'm a collector, so I'm like, I got it. Paul released some of it years ago on his own record label,
Okay.
which is called, yeah, Improvising Artists Initiative. I think III was the label, but it
Right.
only
Okay.
had a pressing on LP. It never had
Never
like
made
a
it to
CD,
CD. Right.
and it was called Coleman Classics.
Right.
You can still find it, but I've got it, and then I think a Spanish something or other finally got all of the tracks, and they
Right.
pressed it to it. pressed it to a CD. So I bought that.
Right, okay.
I bought that. I don't know, maybe
Like,
10,
like a
10,
box
15 years ago.
box set kind of thing, or just like a single disc? Right,
Yeah, single disc. Like 75 minutes, whatever.
right.
I still love listening to it, but I was drawn to the original group on those Atlantic records because my dad had them. So I'm
Mhm.
listening to them as a teenager. It's like, so working ensemble, number 2. Okay, number 3. Okay, whoa, this is tricky and controversial because and then God, it's like I'm a jazz nerd. And then it goes to the obvious one, but it's kind of like, and I mean this in the most heartfelt terms, and I don't want anyone to take this out of context, is the John Coltrane Quartet in moderation as an ensemble that
Yeah,
I was drawn to as a working group, and more so the ones where it is the lineup of Elvin Jones, Jimmy Garrison, McCoy Tyner, John Coltrane.
yep.
I'm fond of the ones with Steve Davis. I'm talking about a very specific all four.
Yeah, unit. Yep.
And it's as simple as, um, hey, Dad, um, I know that I've been listening to John Coltrane because I've been listening to Cook and Steam and Work and Relaxin'.
Yep.
Hey, Dad, what have you got of Coltrane? And then, he doesn't even have to tell me because I can look in his bookcase and he's got all the LPs. Oh, here's the black and white spine of A Love Supreme. So A Love Supreme was the first John Coltrane record I ever heard. I would have been about 14 or 15.
Right.
And it was just awesome. Like, dude, that's my introduction to the John Coltrane Quartet. I think we're doing okay here. And what I mean by
That's a pretty intense introduction to an ensemble as well.
yeah,
Right, straight out the gate, swinging
yeah,
straight out from the gate.
why not? Why not? Why not? And I was very fortunate because Dad had a really nice turntable. He had good speakers. The record was in good condition. So, it's if nowadays, because people being audiophiles, they're like, I want it to sound like this, and I'm trying to recreate blah blah blah. For me, that was just childhood. It's like, okay, my dad likes to keep records in good condition and play them on nice equipment.
Yep.
Fine, no worries, Dad. If you're going to let me listen to A Love Supreme, I'm appreciative.
Yep.
Okay, so that goes into the branching out of like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to realize, oh, who's this? Okay, Elvin Jones. Damn. And then that just goes into the natural progression of the rabbit hole of like, oh, okay. So what did Elvin Jones do? Ooh, okay. And then, so that got me into Crescent.
Mm-hmm.
And I still love Crescent.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know why. I've got a real soft spot for Crescent. I just think it's just a sublime record because it's a little bit different than some of the other Quartet releases. It has a nice balance and democracy to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand what you're saying by that. That's there's something about that opening when they've got that drone going and then the time just comes in and it just immediately just hits you there.
Mm.
Like it gives me the same feeling as that bar of time that Elvin plays at the top of Witch Hunt. Like after they play the little intro.
Oh.
It's that same thing where it's just like it's air. You feel this air just lift everything, and it's like I don't need to hear anything else. That's just made my day. Just that feeling, like the primal reaction from just that alone is enough to satisfy me.
Yeah, beautifully put, man. Beautifully put. Um, I always get a sense of it's a beautiful segue because it just reminded me of something as well. It's a I just get that sense of joy listening to Elvin Jones on, and I mean everything, not anything, everything. I just see that man's beaming, smiling face, which just somehow is the essence of his core as a human being, in the fact that he just loves playing the drums and he is just exuding happy, just good feeling, and it does come through in the groove.
Yep.
And yeah, when you just mentioned Speak No Evil, which, you know, Witch Hunt is the first track of Speak No Evil for others who aren't familiar, that got down the rabbit hole for me at home as well. It's like, okay, Dad, what else have you got with Elvin Jones on it?
Yep.
He's like, well, I've got some Wayne Shorter Blue Note records you might listen to. I've got some Freddie Hubbard Blue Note that you might you listen to. So, like, Ready for Freddie.
Yep.
And that incredible solo that Freddie Hubbard plays on Bird-Like.
Bird-Like, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and it was like, oh my God, this is Freddie Hubbard. Okay. Oh, Freddie Hubbard's also on Speak No Evil. Oh, and at the time I was young and a bit stupid. It's like, oh, but why aren't there any up tempos on Speak No Evil? I was like, chill out, listen to it again. And I'm like, this is just, oh, I still adore listening to Speak No Evil, and my thanks to our colleague and dear friend, name drop, Andrew Dickerson, who sent me 3 alternate takes that came out from a Japanese pressing in the noughties, so like 2007, 8 kind of period. Don't quote me, please. And the alternate take of Witch Hunt is just, oh, it's just incredible, but it's just like a different shade of something.
It totally is, isn't it?
I can see why it's not on the record, because it doesn't fit the mood of the album. But if you were to play it to someone, and who hasn't heard Speak No Evil, play them the other take and say, hey, check this out. And they go, that's, you know, it's like, it's equal of a master take.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't quite fit the mood of all the other tracks.
Yeah, the first time I listened to it, I just sat there just going, I had a lot of trouble the first time listening to it, just going, no, the tempo doesn't feel right, can't do it. And then kind of left it for a while, went back to it, and then just went, holy shit, this is just ridiculous. Like, Elvin's so much more active. There's just more going on across the ensemble. But
yeah, and Herbie plays some of the most hippest little comping phrases in the beginning. He's doing like, oh my God, I love that alternate take. Anyway, okay, so what that does is go down the rabbit hole, because then it introduces me to, so drummers are the ones that have always helped me seek out further band leaders.
Yep.
So if I was hooked on Elvin because of A Love Supreme, who else did Elvin play with? Okay, so we've just done the Freddie Hubbard, and then he's on Wayne Shorter records. And then the natural thing out of curiosity is like, okay, well, what other records did Wayne Shorter do? And then I totally fell for, my brother introduced me to an awesome Wayne Shorter record, Schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me into Joe Chambers.
Yep.
Like, and that version of Tom Thumb, and then, so there was another record like Adam's Apple.
Yep. And
Joe Chambers plays a beautiful boogaloo. I'm like, man, this guy. And then Joe Chambers is on Freddie Hubbard records, and then that got me into Breaking Point, and that was a working group.
Yep.
And I love Freddie Hubbard's Breaking Point. I love the compositions. I love the concept of that working group with Eddie Kahn and Ronnie Matthews and James Spaulding. And James Spaulding is on some Wayne records. So that's got me down. So that's where the rabbit hole kind of like, okay, everything sort of branches out. So that got me into the Blue Note obsession like everybody else.
Yep.
And because I grew up with LPs, they just looked good. They were just fun to just pull out of my dad's bookshelf and just put them on the carpet and just look at records and go, man, Blue Note and Impulse records look awesome.
The album art, the liner notes, it's
everything. And that, and I'm really fortunate in the sense of it's not photographic memory, but it's kind of a visual memory where I can see something printed and I can just sort of lock it in my memory out of desire. Go, okay, that album was recorded on that day. that studio with that personnel, and it's just stuck in there. So there are things that I've made space in my brain for, like that, which is not particularly useful, at the expense of other survival skills that have definitely fallen by the wayside.
I can relate for sure, 100%.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that was number 3. God, it takes me a while to get there. Okay, number 4. Still the same thing, working group. I'm still drawn to the ensemble because I just think that I like some of those jam records that were done on a pretty low budget where it's just like rhythm section for hire, horn player. And they're kind of fun, but they're not earth-shattering.
There's a certain chemistry you develop when you're playing together all the time, and it's evident on records like that where it is a unit that is working. They know each other's tricks. They know what suggestion is what and where to go, or it's completely open and they'll just let it happen whether they know where it's going or not.
Okay, so we're going to jump a decade. Now we've gone into the 70s, and sonically for me, I don't care about DI. I don't care about fidelity. Like I just love. It's like I just want to listen to it. I don't care about, And this gets me to one of my all-time favorite ensembles that it's an addiction I can't quit. I am a total addict for the Keith Jarrett American Quartet. Keith Jarrett, Dewey Redman, Charlie Hayden, Paul Motion, and all the offshoots of like additional percussion or guitar or whatever, strings, brass, whatever Keith decided. That group, to me, is one of the greatest improvising ensembles I've ever heard in my life. I have, I think, 15, maybe 16 commercial albums of trio and quartet with Charlie, Paul, Dewey. I love every single one of them for completely different reasons. I don't play favorites. Well, I kind of do. But I just like, oh my God, my brother played me. Okay, so it's the offshoots. So you start listening to Miles records and you go, and I was, so I had listened to Bitches Brew because it looked awesome on a double record.
Yeah. Yep.
And then some of that electric stuff. So, like Dad had like Miles at Fillmore, and then so I saw the name Keith Jarrett and went, oh, I know the name. Okay. All right, J. Let's go to Dad's record collection. D, E, F, G. Oh, J. Ooh. Oh, okay. Here's about 10 different records of Dad's with Keith Jarrett's name on the spine. Okay. So the first Keith Jarrett record I ever heard, and Dad had it. Man, my childhood was good. Strange. In terms of what I listened to, the first record was the obvious the Cologne concert, or the Cologne concert. Yep. My pronunciation's terrible, and it was the same thing. Hey, Dad, what do you think I should listen to of Keith Jarrett? He's like, try this one, and he went straight for the classic solo piano, and it was just like hearing a Love Supreme for the first time. It didn't matter; it didn't have drums. I was like, oh my God, this is wow. This is beautiful. This is just extraordinary. And then later you get to learn about, everything that went behind the scenes from the commute of him and Manfred trying to get to Cologne, the condition of the piano, the fact that there was a concert beforehand, the piano is not in good shape. It's already been played, so it's starting to go out of tune, and there's only a mid-register of the piano that he can use. And then you learn that the opening phrase that he's playing is a piss take on the outside call siren for people to come in, and because the concert is starting. And then you can hear someone laughing in the beginning of the Cologne concert because they realise that Keith is just having a bit of fun playing off the siren from the outside of the hall, saying, come on, the concert's about to start. So that was my thing with the Cologne concert. But I didn't know that until years later. All I did was listen to it and go, oh, man, a double LP, a solo piano?
Yep.
Well recorded. Let's do it. And then my brother introduced me to Shades. That was the first record I ever heard of Keith with a band. And I was like,
Mhm.
and then I heard Shades of Jazz, which is the first track, and then I heard Southern Smiles, which has got this straight accent, and then I was like, I love this band. I love this music. This is just the most awesome improvised raw shit I've ever heard, and I just was hooked, and I mean hooked. I mean I'm still tragically hooked. And
Mhm.
so when I was looking through it, I went, okay, Shades, Mysteries, two albums done on the same recording session. I love them equally. If I had twins, it'd just be a heartbreak. I'd call one Shades and the other Mysteries because I love both of those because they were both done on the same session. Treasure Island is just. I just love the compositions and that first track, The Rich and the Poor.
The groove, just insane.
And and you play that to someone. Now I associate the beat as a back beat, as in I'm on the back of the beat, and it's like maybe, and you've got this assumption of what you think Paul Motion can do. No, Paul Motion could do anything,
Yeah.
and it's got the Paul Motion like fairy dust on it, and it's kind of perfect, but it's like only Paul Motion could do that. And so the idea that you could play a backbeat on one of those tunes where he's got the snares off and it's just the perfect sonic thing, you know. So Treasure Island, there's tunes like La Mistral and Yaqui Indian folk song. Oh my God, there are some things on Treasure Island
That is
that just,
that is definitely the album of that band that I've listened to most. Like Fort Yawa is one that I've checked out, but nowhere near as much as Treasure Island. Treasure Island's the one that's always, always on
yeah,
hand. I've got
yeah. Well,
the
and
CD
it's
and the
interesting. Okay,
LP.
and then you mentioned the live one,
Yeah.
Fort Yoe, and I still can't get over the drums.
Mm.
Track three. And there is just one moment. I wish I could remember exactly what time code it is. Maybe we could do it in the notes and we'll write it in later or something. But there is this one accent that Keith Jarrett and Paul Motion play at exactly the same time while they're improvising, and that is just the summation of a working group. It's
Mm.
just one random accent while they're going through the vamp and just, getting the tune settled and it's grooving out. One random accent. I think it's somewhere in like the 3 minute, like 3 minute 12 or 3 minute 17 or something. I've kind of got that bizarre kind of memory. I really could be wrong, by the way. It's just this one hit, this one accent that Paul plays and Keith, and they're like, and I heard that for the first time, and I'm like, oh, that's why I love working groups, because that's happening live. That's at the Vanguard. That is just like, oh. So it's not my absolute favorite of the group, but that hit, that accent, is one of my favorite of all of Keith Jarrett. And then Bop B and Buyer Blue, um, it's kind of like Shades and Mysteries. The band is deteriorating. They've got to fulfill the record contract. Bop B and Buyer Blue are, enough material. You can make two albums, same recording session, and like a total nerd out drummer thing. To go to that session and just bring a china, a crash, and a pair of hats, not even a ride cymbal. Like, I'm just total nerding out here, by the way. That's a terrible obsession, but when I listen to that one, just for fun, I'm like, wow. I wish, I had, and pardon the visual, I wish I had the balls sometimes to be able to either show up at a performance or a recording session and say, okay, here's my 22 or 24-inch china, here's my crash, here's my pair of hats, let's go. It doesn't matter what I'm playing, I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
So if I want to nerd out, as much, and I love hearing, it's almost like hearing Keith Jarrett as a sideman, because they're playing some Charlie's tunes, they're playing some of Paul's, couple of Dewey's. I love Bop B and Buyer Blue. Okay, so down the rabbit hole, that introduces me to the combination of Charlie Hayden and Paul Motion. And this is some of the biggest life-changing um, musical combination for me on so many different levels about my own um, philosophy as in drumming and in music. I
Yep.
don't know why these two, but they are some of the most influential in my entire life on so many levels. So taking that Charlie Hayden Paul Motion marriage, that got me to listening to an incredible record of with Paul Blake called Memoirs.
Mhm.
And I have listened to Memoirs about 100 times. I could listen to it another 100 times. Oh my god! I can still sing some of the bass solos. I love that record so much. Um, and then that also got me into oh well, who else did Charlie and Paul play with? And then that got me into a couple of the records they did with Jerry Allen, especially Etudes, where they do a fantastic version of Lonely Woman, and then they do a Herbie Nichols tune. I think it's 2300 Skidoo, and there's a moment where Paul Motion and Jerry Allen play this beautiful phrase. He plays it on the snare drum. She's playing this fill on the piano, but it's part of the solo, and they are just maybe Paul's just got that. Paul just could be the piano mind reader. He could just knew what someone was going to play,
Mm.
and it wasn't that he's going, "Oh, I could do it with you" to like piggyback. It's like, no, you can't. It's like it's live. It's a live take in the studio. They're just intuition, man.
Yeah.
So memoirs and etudes, and the other thing that got me about was well, because I'd familiar with Charlie Hayden through all of those Ornette Coleman records.
Yeah.
Charlie Hayden is just my all-time favorite bass player. No offense to anyone else, alive or dead, even the bass players I work with. I'm really sorry. I love working with you, but my favorite is listening to someone else. And what it did is because I adore his bass solos.
Mm.
And it taught me how to learn to love bass solos, listening to bass solos, playing behind bass solos.
And is that
I love.
specifically a Paul thing?
No, well, yeah, but it was a Charlie thing first
Mhm.
because I started falling in love with Charlie's bass solos, and I can think of a few of them, and they coincidentally have Paul Motion on them. But I started listening to some of Charlie's solos, and there's one on Memoir. There's two on Memoirs. He does one on Monk's Dream. He does one which is Thelonious Monk's tune, and he plays another incredible one on an Ornette Coleman tune, Latin Genetics. And those two bass solos, I can still sing them. I remember them, and that was like wow. And then there's a live record that Jerry Allen, Charlie Hayden, Paul Motion did at the Vanguard. It's on a Japanese label, DIW. I'm sure you can stream it, and blah, blah, blah. I'm old school. And there's this little ditty of a tune that Charlie wrote. It's just called Vanguard Blues. But the solo that Charlie plays on that tune, and then it was like my brother played me Vanguard Blues. My dad bought the record. My brother and I were just like moths to a flame. Like, oh, Dad, what have you bought? And we'll just steal it.
Yep.
And then Nick, sort of my older brother, said, "Here, come and listen to this." And then he played me the bass solo on Vanguard Blues. And I said, "Oh, the bloody drummer's not doing anything." He's like, "Yeah, he is. Listen." And then that is like, ah. And so for me, like Paul Motion plays the perfect cushion, the perfect support of just subtly playing that groove behind a bass solo. And that was a huge moment in my whole philosophy in thinking about drumming. Is like I love playing behind bass solos.
Yep.
It's not that I'm going to try to play like Paul Motion. It's just that I've listened to hundreds of bass solos in my own personal life. And I go, I love what it brings out of me as a drummer to play behind a bass solo.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Paul. And so a lot of these things have had influences on me. Well, knowing that bass players don't hate me, or in fact, it's quite nice when bass players actually really enjoy working with me and they say, "Yeah, man, you know how to play behind me." It's like, yeah, because I love bass solos. If I ever have, occasionally I might have a more experienced drum student. And I just don't know how to play behind a bass solo. I will honestly turn it on them straight away and go, okay, then, do you even listen to bass solos in your own time? Oh, I don't know what to play behind a bass solo. Yeah, but do you listen to them? Do you understand the sonic difference between a horn solo and a bass solo? Just don't even worry about what the drums does yet, but do you listen to bass solos out of choice? 9 times out of 10, 4 out of 5, no, I don't listen to bass solos. No. Go away and listen to some bass solos first, then we'll come back. And we'll start talking about what you should do on the drums behind them. But just get into them, respect them. Don't be in resistance to the idea of a bass solo. There are some beautiful ones out there. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Charlie. You still helped me get through lockdown.
Where are we ending up?
Okay.
Number 5.
Okay, number 5. Man, do I just go on too long?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. Phew. Okay, number 5. We're jumping ahead. Now we'll go to the 90s. Can you believe it? Okay, now I'm sure I've left out lots from the group, but then I thought, okay, I want to make this a bit more, late 80s, 90s. And now I've gone and jumped ahead and I'm going, Bill Frisell, Kermit Driscoll, Joey Barron. And I don't know why, but I do know why. And one particular record of Bill Frisell's is Have a Little Faith. And they plays the Aaron Copland, Billy the Kid suite with Don Byron on clarinet and Guy Klusevec on accordion. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And then it branches out into some trio, and it's a beautiful eclectic record. It's pure Bill Frisell, because they'll play some Sonny Rollins, and then they play Madonna, because there's a great version of Live to Tell, and then Have a Little Faith in Me. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really eclectic record, beautifully recorded, but it's that fantastic ensemble. It's a trio plus.
Yeah.
And then that introduced me to the masterful work of Joey Barron as a supreme musician who could do the unexpected. He's almost like an offshoot of Paul Motion in doing the unexpected.
Yeah, it's that thing of you think he does something, but he can really just do anything. It's just open to go absolutely anywhere.
Yeah, and when he does what he chooses out of intention, you go, yeah, that sounds like the right thing to do. Could I have thought of that? No, but I'm glad you did.
Exactly. It's that whole thing of having the conviction to see through an idea and then also being able to bail out of it if you need to, like that, just whatever it is, really.
And bail out with a smile.
Yeah.
Rather than bailing out going, I fucked that one up. It's like, I had an idea, didn't work, I'll do this. So that, so that brings me to just a random track that I'm so drawn to because it's not even on Have a Little Faith.
Yep.
And it's on a Bill Frisell record called This Land, and it's a track called Resistor. And I can't in the sense of I wish I could, as in I wish I had the balls to do. There's a few things that he does. It's kind of like it's sort of like a very twisted kind of blues with a thing at the end. And he's got a drum intro with an egg shaker and a drumstick, and he's just kind of implying melody at the beginning as a drum intro, and it's a quirky ass head a la Bill Frisell. And it's the trio, so Kermit Driscoll, Joey, Bill Frisell, and on this one it's Billy Drews playing alto saxophone, and I'm familiar with Billy Drews because he was on a Paul Motion record called Etude, and he's also on Ballad of the Fallen, which is a Charlie Haydn Liberation Music Orchestra, and he'd also played, he's in the alto chair in the Vanguard Orchestra.
Right.
So
okay.
I knew the name. So I was like, oh, Billy Drews, yeah, he's on that record and that record. It's that thing. I've seen it on paper. I've listened to him. Yep. And Don Byron once again. And Don Byron, I think, takes the first solo, and then Billy Drews takes the second. Don't quote me. And it's kind of usually just stays in this broken 2 feel, and it never goes into like swing in 4 until the last solo, and that's the Frisell solo. And I was listening to it, and it's still broken, and it's like, oh, you guys going to go into swing? Please go into swing. And it goes into swing, and then Joey Barron, and it's a contradiction in terms, Joey Barron rides the cowbell.
Yeah. If you have not heard this track, there is no way any amount of description could convey what actually happens. Like, if you listen to only one track from everything we've spoken about today, it needs to be this. It is truly one of the most like ridiculous yet perfect things at the same time. It really, yeah.
I mean, I just don't have the cojones. Oh, okay, I'm going to play that function of what we equate with the ride cymbal bell when it goes into 4, which is it breaks out into straight swing, but I'm going to play it on the cowbell, and I'm not going to freak out. Like, I am going to stick with it because it's perfect.
Yeah, and the ability to just make that surface still feel incredible. It doesn't feel like a staccato sound. It doesn't feel like you're missing the air of like a cymbal. It feels so right.
And only that person could do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, hearing someone ride a cowbell, I was okay. So that took me down the rabbit hole of the masterful work of Joey Barron and the massive impact that he has on other people's records.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that natural curiosity is like, oh, who else did Joey Barron play with? Oh, well, he's super tight with John Zorn. And so John Zorn had his little homage to Ornette Coleman and his quartet Masada with Dave Douglas, Greg Cohen, and Joey. And, you know, John Zorn's not one for a modest recording output. There is a lot to choose from, and that's an understatement. But Masada, you know, did 10 commercial, well, actually more than 10, but at the time, 10 commercial studio albums.
Right, okay.
And 3.5 of them, volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4 is just like a mini one. They're all done on the same recording session, I believe.
Right.
I think they got enough for 3.5 albums, plus alternate takes, which came out years ago.
Uh-huh.
Man, that band was just like, talk about going through material in one day.
Yep.
Isn't it? So volume. Okay, so you got to sift through all of this. Now, for me, the one that got me with Masada, volume 9 out of 10. Does that mean I bought all 10? No, I just lucked into volume 9. The first track, it's this drum pattern that is just a stroke of genius. That not that I've really been shedding it, but it is something that I respect because it is the perfect groove for the tune. And it's Joey with a brush in his left hand playing a triplet figure with one sweep, and he's playing 2 accents, so you get that and he's got a stick in the right hand, and he's kind of using it as this conversational sort of between the toms and the A sections, and then in the B section, which is just a little breakout, like a 4-bar double time swing, and because he's got the stick in his right hand, he can go to the ride cymbal and play 4 bars of up-tempo swing on the ride, not the cowbell, on the ride cymbal, and then go straight back to that brush groove of the A section, which is the halftime triplet.
Yep.
With the left hand in the brush and the right hand on the drums as this conversational thing. And I was like, that is just beautiful. That is just the perfect groove for this song. Damn, that's incredible. And then there are some tracks on that record that I still am really fond with. But that groove on that track, I just thought, oh, thank you.
Which track was that again?
Just the first track. I'll send you the note because it's a track title in Hebrew, and I don't want to mispronounce it.
Yep, gotcha.
And number 9 is Tet. That's number 9 in Hebrew as well. So like Het, Tet, Yud. Yud is 10, Het is 8. I just learned this from looking at John Zorn albums. I wouldn't have a clue. Anyway, but that groove, and I was like, and then it takes me down the Joey Barron rabbit hole, and I was like, wow, okay. So Mark Johnson did I thought it was a beautiful record with Bill Frisell and Pat Metheny, The Sound of Summer Running, and there's just, some of Joey's contribution on that is just beautiful. And then there's a fantastic, I've got a real fondness for a John Scofield record called Grace Under Pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with Frisell and Charlie Hayden. That was, I think, that might have been one of the first albums I ever heard with Joey Barron on it. And I was just like, wow, there is some magic on this record too. Like, there's just, and because it's got Charlie on it, I'm going, yeah. Oh, and it's got Bill Frisell on it too. Oh, I'm going to listen to this one. So throughout those 5, so Miles, First Quintet, Ornette, Coltrane, Keith Jarrett, Bill Frisell, that was enough, and is still enough with all their offshoots to keep me happily listening to jazz music, hopefully well until I die.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the answer that you or the answers that you provided to those 2 questions have far exceeded my expectations. That's excellent. I'm totally stoked with how that went.
Cool.
Thanks for taking the time out to join me on the first episode of Music That Makes Us. So looking forward to doing some more episodes, and we'll try and keep people posted and get some consistency going with this. But big thank you again, Danny, for taking the time out to join me. I'll put up any of the program notes in the description, comments, wherever this ends up getting posted. But thanks again.
Pleasure.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your